long days, and the neighborhood kids would come over because we were kind of at a central point. And that hill up there, that was so fun sledding down in the winter. We had one girl that slid into that pole, that power pole, and they had to take her out by ambulance. She split her kidney or her liver or something. Yeah, it was awful. But it's funny, you'd slide down and you'd try not to go over those people's fence because it would go straight down. I wish we could take home the smell. I just tried.
Well. Don't you dare turn that thing off.
Oh, it's already on.
It's already on.
Well, where's the rest of them?
In there. Come on.
Hey, sweetie. Come on.
I got up a half hour ago to put the furnace on, so we're letting all this cold air out.
Oh.
Here she comes.
Hey. Come on. Come on, who's that?
Wow! Sweetie pie! Oh!
Hi, Grandpa.
I haven't showered yet or shaved.
Oh, that's fine.
And this is... Come on in. Howdy.
How are you? Hi, old man.
Oh,
90 years old. Wow.
yeah.
But how do you know you're not going to do that out, at a lake?
Oh. Well, this is the seat. Your legs go through there.
I know, but when you walk it to the lake, how do you know that you're not going to fall over?
Because it's got a net there and I'm looking through the net.
Okay, well,
Huh?
okay, well, go take your shower.
Okay. I wish I had something else. There's Billy's picture.
I have that in my
Oh, you do?
room.
Okay,
Yeah.
they've seen that then.
Yeah. But who are these old people?
My grandpa and grandma on both sides.
Oh.
My mother's parents and my dad's parents.
Okay.
So the ones on the left here are the Millirons, and the two on the right are the Watts.
Watts. Okay.
I could turn the TV on for you if you'd like that.
She's watching TV on a little iPad.
I don't have my hearing aid in.
She's
I'm wired for sound too.
She's watching TV right here.
Oh, you're watching TV right there?
Yeah.
Oh, you're taking TV. Oh, wait. Really?
Yep.
A little portable job, huh?
Yeah.
Huh. It looks so much like a wind-up toy, I can't get over it.
I think she is.
Araya.
No, don't
That
touch.
is nothing but solid cute.
We need him around more.
Yeah. Are you gonna not be so shy?
Go say hi.
Now, there's a door down here that leads to the basement.
Mm-hmm.
And if she falls down there, she may not survive it.
Yeah.
Dan, when he was a baby about that size,
Mhm.
fell down there. I don't know why he wasn't killed, but he wasn't.
Didn't he get a nail in his head?
Huh?
Didn't he get a nail in the back of his head?
Did I get
A nail.
A nail?
His head caught on a
nail?
nail.
Yeah.
No, does it look like I have a nail back there?
No, Dan. Uncle Dan.
Oh.
Didn't he get hurt when he fell?
Yeah.
That's like the guy says, "Are you hurt bad?" The guy said, "You ever heard of being hurt good?"
Yeah.
I'm in the bad end of it.
The chair. Can you sit in the chair? Sit in the chair. Yay!
What's that?
And where did that come from?
Well,
You didn't like Mariah, but you liked the rest of it, so you just
no. So it was actually a Hindi name,
Oh, cool.
and
You've lost weight.
So have you.
Yeah. It's brain.
Well, we both
It's
lost.
growing fast, so take a look at it while you can.
Your head does look thinner.
Yeah. Everything.
Is this a different rifle than the one you just had out here?
Yeah.
No.
Yes.
It's the same one.
You
No.
see, this has a lot more figure.
But you
Yes.
said no, but now you're telling me it looks different. So it is. This is a different rifle than the
Yeah.
other one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I'll let you show Josh.
Yeah. When you get it in the light, you can see more of the grain.
yeah. Is this
But,
hey, Marissa.
is this a tiger wood?
Nice to see you on here.
This
I'm
is
sorry,
a
I was such a dork that I didn't even say hello
G3340.
when I came
Okay.
in.
It's very rare. Very, very rare. It's a parachute model of the 98 Mauser. That's a German rifle. But anyway, this is 284. It's a 7mm.
Okay.
Very deadly. That deer was killed with a 7mm. It's a favorite caliber. But my most favorite caliber is a 25-06. And I've killed over 50 deer with that rifle. It's for, I fed my kids on venison for a lot of years. Peter
I can
vouch-
confirm that.
Yeah, he can vouch for that. Yeah. And
That's
very
incredible.
smooth, very slick, very smooth. See, it'll even work itself. But that's the way they are. It says G3340 on this side panel here. But anyway, this is one of Hitler's
Rifles.
pet deal.
So every Christmas morning, my dad would set up these lights and this big projector thing, you know, because this in the olden days. And we'd have to stand along this wall, this hall wall, and we couldn't come into the living room until he finally got everything all set up, and we'd be waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting. You remember that, Peter? Lining up in the hallway?
Yeah, every Christmas the same thing. You know, you get up, you're anxious, you wanna, and nope, can't come out. And it was always like 20 minutes to get the whole thing. And there was a huge bar of lights across the little camera that, you know, had 8mm film or something in it.
Yeah.
Come sit down, Dad.
Oh, okay.
Take a load off.
I can't
should
get
go
over
snuggle
how cute
Grandpa.
that is.
Yeah, she's not gonna pay attention to you. She's watching YouTube.
I'd like to have a shot of that
Yeah.
little tiny child with a iPad or whatever they're called.
iPhone, iPad, yep.
Yeah,
Why do you want a shot of that?
to show you how far society has slipped.
Dad, you have to embrace technology.
If you ever find yourself surrounded by deer, no kidding, and they haven't discovered you, there's a herd of deer, 6, 8, 10, 12 animals or so, and they haven't spotted you. This sounds goofy. I've done it, and it works. You put on a freak show for the deer.
Do you get naked?
Huh?
What do you do?
You don't
Josh,
have
I don't
to
know where you're
strip
going with this,
naked.
but stop.
You do.
You strip naked?
No.
No? Okay, good.
No, yeah.
You and your cutting techniques.
Gotta go
I
primal.
was pussyfooting along through a forest of these skinny trees.
Mhm.
There weren't alders, but something like that. And I suddenly found I was amongst a bunch of deer. And I'd heard of this stunt. And it really works. You'll be startled that you're surrounded by deer, for one thing.
Mm-hmm.
But immediately, you don't look right at them, you look away from them, and you go bananas.
What do you mean?
You reach down, you rip up a bush, a little bush or
Mhm.
something, and you, like you're chewing on it. Now let's say the deer are that brown share. This is a herd of deer,
Uh-huh.
15 or 20 animals. And you're not much more, well, you'd be about the distance of across the street from here, from the deer.
Mm-hmm.
Do not look directly at them. Don't let them understand that they know that you know they're there. You can lay down on the ground and scratch your back and flop your arms around. Do not look at the deer. You catch them out of the corner of your eye. Now, if I was trying to sneak up on that chair and there was 30 or 40 yards, oops, it fell. Don't step on it.
No, it's mine, Dad.
Oh, no, that's mine.
That's mine.
Well, where's mine? You're moving all the time, except when you fall down
Mm-hmm.
or bend over, tear up something, and act like you're chewing on it and throw it away. Those deer are staring at you, practically drilling holes through you. This is the most interesting thing they've ever seen. A crazy man. And you're bending over, you're turning around. You do not look at the deer. But if I was sneaking up on those deer, I would go at an angle. Every step I make, whether it's backward, sideways, I'm scratching my hair, I'm doing push-ups. Those deer are just looking at you like, what in the world has happened to that man's brain? No kidding. Scout's honor. This is a true method. It's an Indian method. That's how they got close enough. And when they got close enough, they draw their bow and then turn and face the deer just as they let fly.
Huh.
But those deer, if you alert them by staring at them, they know they've been had or made, I guess they'd call it. The jig is up.
Right.
So you don't do that. But you can get on your knees, walk on your knees, you can do push-ups, anything to be active, and those deer are just mesmerized by what they're watching. And all the time, you're getting closer to them because they're here, you're angling, and when you're here, the shortest distance, you bring your rifle to your shoulder and just slowly pivot. Bang!
So, yeah, I have a whole bunch of questions here
Okay.
that I'd like to ask you.
Yeah.
What is your full name?
Ernest. You've heard of Honest John.
Uh-huh.
I'm Ernest Earl. Only it's not E-A-R, it's E-R-N-E-S-T. That's the name.
Okay.
Earnest, if you're earnest, in other words, you're honest, you're truthful, you're patient, you're loving, you're kind, and you'll slay any deer that gets in your sight.
I like it.
Okay, E-R-N-E-S-T,
And so Earl's your middle name?
middle name.
I didn't know
But I
that.
go by Earl because I'm a junior,
Okay.
and so my dad was Ernest Earl Sr., and everybody called him Ernie, and even Mom, my mother. So that's one thing. You got anything else?
Oh, yes.
Yep.
So are you the oldest? Oldest boy?
No, he's older than me. My dad is older than me
Uh-huh.
by 30 years, maybe, 25.
Okay.
But he's Ernest Earl Milliron.
Are you the oldest boy?
I'm the
how-
only boy.
Okay. How many sisters did you have?
One.
Okay.
She seemed like 50, but they really get in your hair. My sister, especially an older one.
How far apart were you?
About from you to me.
No, age-wise.
Smart ass.
She was about 2 years, I think,
Okay.
older than me.
When were you born?
November 16, 1927.
And where were you born?
Portland, Oregon.
Oh,
I'm a native son here,
okay.
but I was raised in the Bay Area.
So did you have some interesting animals growing up? Did you live on a farm?
Oh, we had Hilda. Was our most.
When you were growing up, Dad.
When you were a little
Oh.
kid?
We had a boxer dog named Boris, and I had more fun with that dog. He'd wait for me. We had a long street before we got to our house, and I'd be walking up that street toward it. He would see me, he'd be on the sidewalk, way up in front of our house. And I'd wave or something to him, and he knew it was me then. And he would just gather speed, because they're very stocky dogs, like crazy, and he's gonna knock me down, if he can do it. And I step aside just as he shoots by me. He goes 3 or 4 houses past me before he can get stopped. He's got the brakes on. You can almost see the smoke coming off of his paws. And I'm running like crazy for the house, trying to get to the house, to lock him out before he can catch me. Because when he catches me, he's going to bite the heck out of me.
Yeah.
Because I'm laughing so hard I can hardly stand up. And he's skidding by me trying to stop so he can bite me.
That's
But
awesome.
he was a character. He was more darn fun. Oh, and I'd wrestle with him. And he'd be standing, I'd reach under his belly and grab a hind leg and a foreleg. And he's standing over my forearm.
Mm-hmm.
And then I would start putting my shoulder against his side while holding his legs to the ground. And pretty soon he's tipping. He's a heavy set dog. So I'm shoving my shoulders against his side while I'm holding his opposite legs so he can't move. All he can do is go thud. And he's knocked the wind out of himself. And I'm laughing my head at, and he's trying to reach around to bite me.
Sounds like you were a little terror as a kid.
Well, he thought so too. He loved to bite me.
I thought you had an owl, Dad.
I did.
Look at that chipmunk or squirrel. It's ginormous.
Okay, Mom.
Sorry. Sorry.
I'm sorry to admit this, but I took that owl off of her nest.
As a baby?
No, she'd laid eggs in somebody's attic. And when I found that out, I was a nut for birds of prey. And this family wanted to get rid of that owl because it would make a racket up in the attic. They'd hear it at night. And so I asked them if I could have the owl. They said, yes, please do. She's driving us nuts. She's on eggs now. So I climbed up with a ladder, or however it was, I got up in their attic, and with a flashlight, and there she was on her eggs. And I took her off her eggs, put her in a stocking or something so she couldn't fly, and carried her home. And had her for, a couple of months anyway. And then one night, one evening, you could still see a little bit of light on the sky. Guess what I heard out in front of my house?
Was it the baby owls?
No,
Was it a squirrel?
it was her mate.
Oh.
How did he find her blocks and blocks away? And he lit on the power line that went past the front of our house. And I went out and looked, and they're only 2/3 the size of the female. Here was this little screech owl sitting on the wire. And he'd been hooting for her. He did. And I let her go. She belonged with him, not with me. I had a hard time getting her to eat.
What was her name?
Dirty Gilda or something like that. That's what I call her.
That's pretty cool.
So, but I wanted a falcon. That's what I really wanted. You can't fly a owl like you do a falcon.
Falcon, yeah. What's one of your favorite memories as a kid?
As a kid,
Mm-hmm.
well, I had so much fun with Boris knocking him down, and he knew it. When I got my arms and my shoulders against him and reached under and got a leg, he knew it was coming. And he'd look at me out of the corner of his eye, and I would start forward with my shoulders and back on his feet and watching him teeter until thud, oof. But
But if
he
you don't
was,
have on your list to ask him about the firecracker incident,
What's the firecracker incident?
the what?
The firecracker incident?
remember, Dad, that you and a friend of yours got in trouble for.
Oh, yes.
Tell Josh about that.
Okay, I made bombs out of cartridge shells. And, well, let me get a cartridge shell and I take.
No,
No,
it's okay.
We know what it looks like.
Yeah,
We're filming this, Dad.
Oh,
yeah.
oh. Okay, this is the cartridge.
Mm-hmm.
The bullet's on this end, and on this end is the primer.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I built model airplanes, so I had strips of balsa, and I would take some, not masking tape, well, it could have been masking tape, anyway, some plastic tape or something, and wrap a band around it to hold a strip of balsa on each side. Then I put some feathers, because I was tying flies, I put some feathers on the end of the balsa that was sticking out on either side, so they go like this. And then on this end, where the primer is, I glued a block of balsa, and I took a little nail, like you hang a picture with, put it through the block before I glued it onto the cartridge shell with that tape.
Mm-hmm.
And all I had to do was hike a few blocks, and there was a bridge over a creek bed. And down below was some concrete, a spillway. And from up there on the bridge, I would drop one of those bombs, and the police got complaints that somebody was exploding something down in the canyon. And there were some guys, but they're the only ones that ever worked on that spillway. And from up above, I could drop one of these bombs. You see, the guy goes in every direction.
I didn't remember this being quite
So
as
they
racist
got
as
a
it turned
number
out
of
to be.
complaints, mostly from, felt they were being threatened with their lives.
Oh.
Somebody's trying to kill them. And one day, and the guy that lived behind me on the block behind was my best friend. We made food bombs. Now you could just throw them up in the air and they come down and hit the pavement and explode and make a
Funny
big
outside.
bang. Anyway, from my back window, I could look across the house behind me and up the porch to the porch of my friend. And I saw a police car in front of his house. And my dad said, well, they're gonna be here next.
Oh no.
He knew about he didn't think I was doing anything really, you know. And pretty soon that car started up, and Bunk, that's what I called my friend, had gotten in the back seat, and they drove down the street. My dad said, son, they're gonna be here next, you better get ready. And sure enough, they pulled up in the park. They had him for a guide to say how to get to my house.
Oh no.
And so while we're driving, they're gonna take us down, they've gotta make a report. He says, "You're not under arrest unless you do this again." They can't get those guys to go back to work on that spillway.
No.
So they took us down and they said, "Now you're not under arrest. This doesn't go on your record, but you got to stop doing that."
How old were you?
Oh, probably 12, 13, 14, whatever. But I wasn't trying to hit any of them.
Right.
I just, if they were on the right side of the spillway, I'd drop it on the left. But they would scatter like a puff of smoke.
What were your grandparents' names?
Grandpa and Grandma.
Yeah.
Well, my mother's dad, they were, of course, all named Watts. I think it was Henry Watts, and my grandpa and my dad, my mother's, that was my mother's
Mm-hmm.
dad, and my dad's dad seemed like it was George, but I'm not sure. I've got it on my genealogy records
Okay.
because I've done his work for him, for both of them.
What's some of your favorite memories of your grandparents?
Well, it included my uncles. They would go out and when the salmon were running in a creek near their home, they would gaff them and drag them out of the water.
Mm-hmm.
And then they would clean them and everything and hang them from the clothesline. They didn't have washing machine and dryers, and they would smoke them in a little, looked like an outhouse,
Mm-hmm.
about this square, and inside were all these racks with screens, and they'd lay those fillets, salmon, on those racks, and have a fire going underground with a metal pipe going up and into the it looked like an outhouse, but it was a smokehouse. And one day my Uncle Don did this to me, and he opened the door of that, what was absolutely at one time or another must have been an outhouse, and he broke off a piece of the most delicious food I had ever tasted, smoked salmon. So he broke off a sizable hunk and handed it to me, and I just gobbled that. Well, as soon as he'd vacated the premise there, I went right back in and broke off another piece, and pretty soon there was practically nothing left but the skin. And each time I broke off another piece, I think, well, he won't notice that. But that's where I learned that fishing can be more than just fun, of catching fish. You smoke this stuff and it's delicious.
Yeah.
So,
What were your parents' names?
my wife,
Your parents? So your mom and your dad. What was your mom's name?
Evelyn Leonita Watts.
That's a pretty middle name.
Evelyn Leonita
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's pretty.
Watts.
What's your favorite memory of your parents?
One of the most favorite, I always got up a little later than my dad. My dad was always ready for work and off to work before I really was fully dressed and everything. And when he'd walk down the driveway to get to the garage where his car was, he was always whistling or singing. He was a very cheerful man. He smoked cigars. And if we were in a room like this with him with a cigar, there would be a patch of gray-blue air. You could raise up above it and talk over it. If you wanted to talk to the guy or somebody that's in the room with you, or you could get down lower than this band. It was a lair, and you couldn't look through it. It was like this. And it was his smoke from his cigar, but he loved cigars. I never saw him smoke a cigarette.
What did your dad do for work?
He was a vacuum cleaner salesman.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
How did you meet
Billy?
Yeah.
Interesting. We were in band and orchestra together.
Oh yeah, that's.
She played clarinet. I played flute and piccolo. And there was an oboe player sitting between us. This is in the woodwind section. So here's this oboe player. My dad brought a picture home that Billy's father, who worked where my dad worked, they were both vacuum cleaner salesmen. He came to work one day and showed my dad this picture, pretty good sized picture. It was one of the cutest girls I've ever seen holding 2 salmon.
Wow.
This was on the banks of the Sacramento River. That's where they had been fishing. There were 9 girls in the family. I didn't know that.
Wow.
And 3 boys, 12 kids.
Wow.
Well, he took this real cutie pie salmon fishing with them. And they got 2 salmon. I don't know if she caught both of them or one of them, but she was there on that salmon trip. And so her dad took a picture of Clara, who looked just like Billy. They could have been twins. When I saw the picture, I thought it was Billy. And that day, the oboe player was sick, so our seats went together. I now had an excuse to get acquainted with her, because I was kind of shy. And so I said, "Was that you holding those 2 salmon in that picture?" She said, "Yes." She wanted to meet me too.
Oh.
And she lied through her teeth. She couldn't have cared less about the biggest salmon in the world. And so my first thought was, the girl for me.
Yeah.
She loves fishing. So we got friendlier and friendlier, and we were both in band and both in orchestra. And as much as possible, we sat next to each other. So that's how we became acquainted. And then one day, her dad noticed that I'd come by the house once in a while to see Billy. He said, "Why don't you invite Earl to come to church with us and then to Sunday dinner?" And she said, "Oh, Dad, he wouldn't be interested. All he's interested in is hunting and fishing." Well, she wasn't quite right. I was getting more and more interested in this cutie in the seat next to me. And he said, "Well, try him. Just try him." Well, she said to me one day in band or orchestra, "Would you like to come to church with me on Sunday and then to dinner after church?" Boy, would I. Any time with Billy was quality time. That was my aim in life at that point. Finding ways to find excuses to go over to her house. So she asked me, and I said, "Oh, yes, I would like that very much." And when I went to their house and then went with them to church, as I approached the door of the chapel to go inside, I felt the Spirit. It was definitely there with me. When I went through the door, I walked in among total strangers except for her family. And I didn't feel a stranger. I felt I'd come home. And indeed I had. I'd never been there before. But I felt. And then, just before church started, she got up, walked down the aisle, up to where the pulpit is and the organ, and sat down with the organ. She was 16, and she was the ward organist and the stake organist.
Wow.
Organist. And I'd never heard an organ played as well as she played it. For her whole life that she played, she played the organ. She was the organist.
Is that how you joined the church?
Yes. I'm sure she introduced me to the bishop. And trying to think of his name, started with an L, not Lyman.
Lavelle?
Huh?
Lavelle?
No. It almost came to me just then. Bishop Lauper. Lauper. Have you ever seen him? I've got a picture of him right over there. There's Cutie Pie, but that's not Dennis Lauper. Needless to say. Oh, did you ever see this picture of your mother?
Yep.
Yeah. Oh, there's Clara, the gal with the fish. And there's Billy. See him?
Yeah.
And there's her dad on the other side. He's looking rather stern there. Okay, here's my best man. He's the one that was arrested with me for the bombs.
What was his name?
Marvin Corum. I envied his wavy hair. It was naturally wavy. Now, this is Dennis Lopper. He's signing our marriage certificate.
That's really
When I
cool.
started coming to church with Billy,
Mm-hmm. Can I take pictures?
huh?
Can I take pictures
Oh,
of these?
yeah.
Okay.
When I started coming to church with Billy, he, after his busy schedule on Sunday, usually a couple of hours, right after church, he would be holding interviews and whatever. He would have me wait, and he taught me the gospel. I learned to love that man very much.
What's your favorite scripture?
Favorite scripture?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow, there's so many of them. About then it was I do. Did you ever see all those pictures?
I don't know.
There's one that's my favorite. I think it's the one. No,
That's you.
I know.
That's you.
I was a Marine. And I've always been a very proud Marine. But there's one picture there with Billy and me that is the favorite of the whole bunch. I'll dig it out for you here. I wonder if I passed it out. No, it's got to be in there. Oh, this one. I wish they'd taken the pictures in color. The Marine uniform, that's the dress uniform, is very colorful.
Tell me about the time that that you got shot.
Oh, I spent my 9th birthday in the hospital with them trying to save my life. That bullet went right in here, right near the very edge of my nose. See that?
Mm-hmm.
It took out all these teeth. I had a bridge up until recently, but it finally just wore out. I had it for so many years. I had to have a bridge in there, or the Marine Corps wouldn't have taken me.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
They don't want anything that can fall out, or if you're wounded, could get in your throat. But I had a bridge that would snap into place.
Mm-hmm.
And then, I had, what do they call, it's not a bridge. I had a bridge put in where they fit them to the other teeth,
Mm-hmm.
and it's permanent. What do they call false teeth?
Mm-hmm.
Bridge
Oh, the dentures? Denture? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I had dentures for several years, but when I went, I could have gone in the Marine Corps for 3 years, or I could have done my service in 2 years if I joined the Army.
Hmm.
But the Marines, there's nothing like the Marines. It's tough. A lot of big, husky guys that went to boot camp with me begged out. They said, I'm not going to take any more of this. And I was the lightest guy in that whole group. I don't think there's anybody lighter than I was. 127 pounds. That's pretty light.
Yeah.
You could put me in your pocket.
When did you join the Marines?
At 20,
Okay.
I think.
When did you marry
19.
Grandma?
No, wait, it was 19, I think.
Okay. What year was that? So that was...
I've got the records in a safe in the middle bedroom there.
Was it 48?
It's my discharge, honorable discharge, and
It was
my
19, that
record.
would have been 46.
I came out of there a
46.
sergeant.
Okay.
I got married as a corporal. But a corporal, when you become a corporal, you are then a non-commissioned officer. But you also wear the red stripe on the blue pants that the Marines wear. And that red stripe is a big part of adding that finishing touch to that uniform. But I never regretted that I joined the Marines. I've been deathly proud of that every day of my life, that I was a Marine, and now even. The Army, it seems like the misfits. Now, there's been some very brave Army soldiers,
Mm-hmm.
but the Marines stand out. And a young man came to school when I was in high school. He got out of the service, and all we knew is he'd been in the service during the war.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the teacher one day asked him to come to school in his uniform. He walked into our classroom. He was a Marine. He was the sharpest looking individual I've ever seen. All I'd ever seen him in is blue jeans and a plaid shirt or something. He came in the dress uniform, not the parade uniform of the blue and the one that the other branches of the service call them bellboys, because they look like waiters in a hotel, you know. But they usually don't call it to your face. They have the deepest of respect for the Marines. The Army would go in World War II, take an island. No, the Marines would go in and take an island in a matter of just a day or two. And after they'd secured the island, the government would shift some Army personnel in there to take their place, so the Marines can go and start taking more islands, which they did. And then they would give those to the Army to take care of. Within a week, the Army would have lost that island that the Marines spent blood, sweat, and tears to capture. And the Marines would have to be called back to take the island back again. Everybody was afraid of the Marines. They respected them so highly. They did the work. They got the jobs done. And when other branches of the service would lose an island, whatever, any advancement they'd made on the ground level, whatever it was, they would take it back. They never failed. And when it came time that I was being drafted, I would rather be a Marine and risk more my life, have it more in jeopardy, than I would be to a sailor or an Army soldier. But once a Marine, always a Marine. That's an old saying.
Mm-hmm.
Your mother made that blanket for me.
Yeah, that's what she was saying, that she made that for you.
Yeah. I've had that quite a few years. Do you know what Semper Fidelis means?
Uh-uh.
Always faithful. And every time they show an eagle like that with the American flag and everything, it always says Semper Fi.
Mm-hmm.
In short, Semper Fidelis.
Okay. Go ahead.
Hey, Dad, you went in, what did you train to do in the Marine Corps?
Radar repairman.
And? Did you get to do that?
No. No! What I got to do, this is right after the war, they decided my services were needed on Guam. This was after the war. So they sent me to Guam. All the radar was on the docks being shipped home to the United States. And I was doing inventory in some warehouses on electron tubes. You know, your TV was an electron tube, and we didn't have TVs, but we had all kinds of tens of thousands of electron tubes for radars. We had to inventory those, package them and everything, and ship them home. And when I wasn't doing that, this is what PO'd me the worst. I spent my valuable time as a radar repairman cutting grass with a machete between the Quonset huts. When the grass and the weeds grew up, I was one of those Marines out there with a machete, cutting them off. And one day, I wasn't doing that, I got into some tall grass between one of the, or a couple of Quonset huts, and the officer of the day, a warrant officer, drove by. Here's these two Quonset huts. There were several. There's a road down there one side. And this Jeep comes barreling down. I can hear him coming. I'm carving coconuts. You've seen those coconut heads. I'm carving coconuts, and this Jeep goes zooming by this space about 20 feet between Quonset huts, and I'm leaning back against the Quonset hut, working away with my pocket knife on a coconut head. And he hit those brakes, and there was gravel out where he was, and I could hear him. And he was hit the brake, seeing me in there with a coconut in my lap carving. And then the whirring of the wheels trying to get traction in that gravel as he's trying to back up to nail me. And he puts me under arrest.
What?
I'm supposed to have been cutting grass. But instead I had a back order of about a dozen or more coconut heads. That's what these guys wanted to send home to their folks. When they saw one of my coconut heads, they said, I gotta have one of those. Well, after writing me up with a citation, that warrant officer got back in his Jeep, and then he got out again and came over to me and said, those are really nifty. What do you do with them? I say, well, I'm carving them for personnel that want a souvenir to send home to their folks. He said, would you make me one? And I said, well, I've got a backlog of orders. I'll try. And all the time I'm thinking, thumbs down to you. You just arrested me and I'm on extra duty now. And he drove away. I never made him a coconut head. But when he came through and he was the inspecting officer, he'd always go behind my footlocker at the head of my bed and look at those coconut heads that I was carving for other people. But he never got one. Yeah, you've seen mine.
Mm-hmm.
I sent my folks one, and I sent Billy one.
Mm-hmm. So how did you get into gun stock making?
There was somebody came to work. I was working at the Western Skies Industries. We were making the center wing sections for the Sky Raider, which was a very effective fighter bomber. And one day a guy brought a thing he'd torn out of a newspaper, and it said, wanted, young man to learn stock making. And it was Kurt Otto Haas, German, in case you can't figure it out. Kurt Otto Haas.
So this is after the war then?
Yeah.
Okay.
And he wanted the young man to learn stock making, and I'd made one stock. And it was very crude. I wish I'd saved it. Um, so I called him up. He was near Oakland, California. He was in Livermore. So he invited me to come out and talk to him. And I did. And so he hired me for $45 a week. That was it. And I was doing a little better than that, building wing sections for the A3D Sky Raider. But I said, okay, but I've got a wife and children. And he says, don't worry. He said, if you're as good as I hope you're going to be, you'll catch on quickly and we can adjust your wages. So I did, $45 a week. And that did one of several things. It introduced me to the Bay Area as a stock maker, because I caught on very quickly. And my brother-in-law, Billy, had three brothers, Clarence, Royal, and Alfred. And Royal had a gun shop. And he heard about me through the vine, I guess, that I was doing gun work. So he wanted to see some of it. So I made sure I got over there and showed him. And what he wanted was somebody to do the inletting. You take a machined blank and you make the final fit to the metalwork.
Mm-hmm.
And he really liked my inletting. It was a watertight fit. His were very crude. He was a very crude worker himself. And when he could find somebody, and I think I only charged him $15 a gun to inlet it.
Mm-hmm.
He kept me busy inletting these machined stocks that were about 3/4 machined. And so various and sundry other people wanted to know if I'd do their inletting. And I said, well, I told them I'd like to make the whole stock. Well, fine. And so that got me into it. And I gave up the A3D Sky Raider wing, center wing section, and went to work for Kurt Haas in Livermore. And eventually, I thought I'd really like to do this full time. And that I would need more equipment. But Kurt Haas, the gun maker that I went to work for, he was quite disappointed when I told him I just can't, Kurt, I can't do it. We've got to eat, we're paying for a house, and so with the amount of notoriety I had just in the Bay Area there, Abercrombie and Fitch, you've heard of them?
Yeah.
They had a store in San Francisco, big one of the biggest stores they built while I was fooling around doing inletting. And when I started finishing stocks for the barreled actions they came up with, they really liked that. They even put my work in those great big glass windows on the front of their store, Abercrombie and Fitch. And then I decided, well, I don't like the Bay Area. It was really deteriorating. Along Foothill Boulevard, virtually all of the stores were boarded up. The crime rate was so high and so vicious and so bad that I wanted to get out of the Bay Area. So Billy and I came on a vacation trip, and I wanted to go to Bend for the hunting and the fishing. And they had a big sporting goods store there. And I went in there and with some of my work and talked to the manager. And he said, I hate to burst your bubble, but he said, we've had countless young men like yourself that wanted to move to Bend for the hunting and the fishing. And he says, this work is so seasonal. He says, you won't be able to stay busy the whole year. And he says, I wouldn't recommend that you move here if you planning to make this permanent. So I was very disappointed. I went back, got in the car and told Billy, I said, apparently a lot of people have tried to make a living here. And like he told me, he said, nobody could do it. There wasn't enough work. For one or 2 months, they might have enough work to keep them going just for those 2 months. But he said, by the end of the year, you're really struggling. And she said, well, you were born in Portland. That's only about 200 miles from Bend. Why don't we go up to Portland? You were dealing with Earl Roberts, who had a big spindle machine that turned out wood copies, and he was selling those. Maybe he could figure out a job for you or something. I said, well, let's just go up there. We haven't been there. She'd never seen it, but she knew I was from Bend. That's where, near where I was born. And from there, we went to Portland when we found out that Bend wasn't doable.
Mm-hmm.
And so I worked, and Earl Roberts said, if you come up here, I'll let you handle the retail sales on my machined stocks. Well, his machining and his equipment was very poor. Crude would be a compliment. It really would. And I had in that little shop, which is about big as this front room, there's a little log cabin. And I had a big wooden rack with all these stocks in there that he'd machined. And that's what he did. He cut walnut trees up into flitches, dried them, and then machined them into stock blanks. Well, I had a list of prices up there, in letters about this high, the different makes of stock blanks that I was handling for him, and how much I charged, which was over 3 times as much as for anybody else's machine stocks. His were so crude. They were really awful. And so the prices listed Robert's stocks at like $80 to hand bend it. And a Pfluger blank, $40 to to hand bed it.
Mhm.
And it had those across up there, and he walked in one day, and he stepped back and looked up there and read all of those. He said, "That's a slap in the face," because I charged at least twice, and most of the time 3 or even 4 times, what I was charging for anybody else's. And I said, "Well, Earl," his name was Earl too, I said, "Earl, your blankets are so crude, I spend 3 or 4 times as much time trying to straighten them up and make them usable." And he turned on his heel and stormed out of my little shop. And about an hour later, Marjorie, his wife, and his bookkeeper, she handled the bookkeeping, the billing and everything. She came over to me and said, "Earl, we want our building back." They threw me out. So there was a very, very, very good machinist who did gun work, Walt Lodewick. He got wind of this, and he called me up. He had his shop out in St. John's. And he called me up one day and said, "I'm hearing rumors that you might be looking for some shop space." He says, "I've talked to Taylor Walsh. He's the one that was the manager of the St. John's sports shop. He says he thinks he can fix up in the back room enough space that if you want to move in there, we'd like to have you." And I already knew of Walter Lodewick's machining. Immaculate, beautiful work. And they didn't have anybody putting on recoil pads. That's a stock job. Or doing inlettings, and or finishing them, or checkering them. And so I went out and talked to them, and I really like Walt, and Taylor, what did I call him? It was a Taylor, no, yeah, Taylor Walsh, whatever it was. He was kind of a jerk, but we got along okay. But he would take off for a half a day at a time and say, "Earl, take over. I'm going to go bowl a couple of lanes with so-and-so," one of his friends in the St. John's neighborhood. And he'd be gone all day. And I couldn't get my work done because I was doing that as a favor for him and to pay him for the use of his shop for my shop in the back, in the storage room. So I decided that I could do my checkering at home, but I would do the rest of the stock work in his sports shop. And finally, he kept taking time off of work to such a degree, I was spending my whole time just minding his shop. I wasn't making any money. So I'd already transferred my checkering to this house, the basement. And I found out that my reputation was growing. I didn't know how fast. But the editor, the gun editor of Outdoor Life, maybe you've read that once or twice, Jack O'Connor, who was, without a doubt, the world's foremost authority on custom guns. Well, I got my big machine. I invested in that, which I'm so thankful I did. A magnificent machine, 3,000 pounds.
Jeez.
Anyway, it came from Minneapolis, Minnesota. That's where the machine was made. And I took it down that stairwell that's right out the window there, piece by piece. The biggest pieces were 300 pounds each. Well, anyway, I put that big machine in my basement, and now I was complete to do everything at home. So I told everybody goodbye. I'm going into my basement.
And we
And
never
one
saw him
day-
again.
Peter Alport, who was the owner and manager of the thought I'd never forget it.
Norm Thompson.
Peter Alport, this
Norm Thompson Outfitters.
Norm Thompson Outfitters.
A precursor to REI,
Yeah.
kind of.
I was turning out some completed rifles for Norm Thompson Outfitters. And I didn't know it, but he was a personal friend of Jack O'Connor.
Oh.
One day, guess who came to Portland from Idaho to meet? Guess who? Because he was the leading authority worldwide in custom guns. Peter Alport called up, says, Earl, Jack O'Connor's in town, he wants to meet you. And I almost swallowed the phone. This man put me on the map. I know I've got some of those, you've got one, I think. One of those little booklet-like things.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes, with all the letter and the newspaper clipping and yeah.
And Jack O'Connor's letters that he'd copied, that he'd written to people that wrote him, saying, I would like to build a fine custom rifle. Who would you recommend? And he'd write back. He says, you want to send the metalwork to Tom Burgess. Without a doubt, the greatest metalsmith anybody has ever met or worked with. He had he got Tom Burgess to do the metalwork and me to do the stock work. And that rifle, we built rifle, Tom Burgess did the metalwork, I did the stock work. And I still, to this day, this was a custom grade rifle, Tom Burgess's metalwork, and a mill iron stock. It had a Redfield scope and a Redfield mount and bases. Do you know how much Peter Alport was selling those rifles for, completed? And then they're the first things that Jack O'Connor saw when he walked in on this trip to Portland. He went right to his friend Peter Alport. And Peter Alport had told him, there is a stock maker you need to meet. And all of a sudden I hear on the phone, Earl, Jack O'Connor's in town. He wants to meet you. That was a dream come true. Now the letters he wrote, and I have a collection of them in this little binder thing, of letters from customers. He would get letters from people wanting to know, who should I send the work to? I want a really good job. He'd say Tom Burgess for the metalwork, then tell Tom to ship the metalwork to Earl for a stock. Anyway, when he would write that person back saying, you want to send the metalwork to Tom Burgess in Kalispell? No, in
Kalispell.
no. It was in Kalispell's in
Montana.
Idaho, isn't it?
No, Kalispell's in Montana. That's where Tom Burgess lived when you went to visit him that time.
Yeah.
But maybe he lived somewhere else before that?
Yeah, and well, he ended up living in the northeast corner of Washington.
Oh.
What's that?
Spokane?
Spokane. That's where Burgess ended up. So from what'd you just say?
Spokane?
Spokane. This memory of mine drives me nuts. They were selling that beautiful rifle. Is one of those. They were worth several $1,000s. Peter Alport didn't realize that, and why Tom didn't catch on to it before I did, I don't know, because Tom was a very sharp businessman. We sold those rifles with a Redfield scope, Redfield mounts, Tom Burgess rework of the barrel.
Mm-hmm.
He rechambered them, he cut a new chamber. He shortened them 1 inch to make them balance better. He turned the barrels a little bit lighter, more apropos for a 308. And he reformed the rear tang. It had Tom's metalwork and a mill iron stock. He'd write these people back and say, when they'd say, why do you keep mentioning Tom Burgess and Earl Milliron? He wrote them back a simple message, because there is none better. And he was talking about the world. The British don't have it. They used to be #1. There are 13 stock makers. They're considered the world's greatest. From this here's a picture of the very first rifle I made for Norm Thompson Outfitters.
Jeez.
That's the Redfield scope and mounts, and that's Burgess's metalwork, and that's the mill iron stock. But he's given every one of those 13 stock makers a place in this book. They're the 13 greatest stock makers. A lot of them have died now, so I don't know how many, but this is one of 3 rifles I built for who was the Boston Bean? Doug Shapiro.
Yes.
Okay, Doug Shapiro he called me up one day from Boston. He said, Jack O'Connor recommends you and Tom Burgess to build a rifle for me. And he said, but I don't have much money, so I can't spend too much. After he pleaded poverty, he okay, he sent me a retainer, but that's not what I'm trying to think of. After he didn't tell me this. You've heard of the sweetheart straw and cup business?
Uh-uh.
Well, anytime you get a Pepsi or a Coke,
Okay.
it's usually in a plastic cup.
Mm-hmm.
They're worldwide. It's a huge business. They own it. And he's pleading poverty. Because you know what? He told me this later. He said, whenever anybody finds out that I'm the inheritor of the Sweetheart Straw, it's a worldwide conglomerate. He said, the price goes up on everything. He says, I didn't know you. And anyway, to show you what this developed into, we became good pen pals. He flew out here to go hunting with me over on the Imnaha. Also, on his birthday, guess what his wife did?
What?
She sent me an airline ticket to Boston to his birthday party. Now, this is the guy that said, Earl, I really can't spend much. Now, this first rifle I built for him is a very plain stock. It's very neat and orderly. That's the one he hunts with. But then, the next thing I know, he sends me a letter, Earl, I want the fanciest piece of wood, this next one, I want the fanciest piece of wood you can find. No more $35 blanks. So I built 2 more rifles, 3. He's got 3 of my rifles. And that one that showed in there was the second one. This is a 30-06. The first one was a 7x57 Mauser. And Tom Burgess, of course, did the metalwork. And then the third rifle was a 7mm Magnum. That's for elk, big stuff, big bears. But anyway, those 3 rifles are photographed in here with different shots showing different aspects of my design compared to what the others have for a design. He's not saying anyone's better than the other.
Right.
Because he recognized these men. This is such a unique profession that when only 13 people are listed in a book, this book was over $200, but I got it for free because my work is featured in here. Anyway, I thought I'd give you that little rundown.
Yeah.
But I've got more of these around. I hope I have. I'm sure I do. I know I ran into some just the other day. But you can have that.
Okay.
And
Thank you.
There's several of the letters that, now, aren't they stapled together?
Yes. This is just a second copy.
Oh.
You had multiple copies.
Oh, that's a complete one then?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
and this is a complete one.
Yep.
Oh, good. Okay. I want one as a master so I can make more copies if I ever need to.
Okay. Is that one darker? It might be this thing.
I think they're identical.
Okay.
Yeah, look through them. Make sure you don't have. There should be about 8 or 10 copies. Pages anyway.
Yeah, they're
Yeah.
the same.
Okay.
So, right. I'll try not to put my foot on
Well, I recognize myself as one of the most blessed in my life
that.
of anybody. things have happened, and when you read those letters that people have written, now there's one guy that's up in Canada, and his father painted that picture, this big picture on the wall there. And he would come down from Canada every time he had me build a new rifle. He didn't trust it to the mail. But I ran into a group of people that became well known to me because they became such good friends. And when you read their comments to me in those letters, you'll see why I saved them. I didn't save every letter I got. Some were more matter-of-factly. But there's a number, there's even some people I did work with just with my machine. Gerber knives. You ever heard of them?
Yep.
Okay, if you have one of their wooden handled knives, guess who machined the handles? I did thousands a month.
Wow.
And it's almost embarrassing. They are praising me so for my delivery schedule.
Mm-hmm.
I never held up production. My work was unquestioned as to its quality. They didn't even critique it. Well, I hate blowing my own horn, but those different letters there are mostly from people, and they didn't have to be gun nuts. Like Gerber's was a knife outfit.
Mm-hmm.
And they bought the same kind of machine that I had because they liked the quality of my work. Well, it took the machine and the operator. But be that as it may, the Lord has opened the door for me so incredibly. I've just been stunned.
So I'd actually like you to
You
bury
what?
your. I'd like you to bury your testimony. That's
I
something to bury your testimony.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Is that something that you would do for me?
My first taste of a testimony I've already told you about when I walked up to the door with Billy to the chapel door before they had even opened it. I felt the Spirit. And I walked inside. I felt at home. I didn't feel a stranger. And I recognized only the Goodsell family. That's what Billy was from. But the other people, they were as friendly in shaking my hand and greeting me as anybody could be. I didn't feel strange amongst them. I felt at home. I knew in my heart, I have come home. Since then, among other things, I was a scout leader of my ward for over 30 years. I served as a high counselor under 4 stake presidents. My first job in the bishopric was as first counselor. My next job was as bishop. And now, I'm liking to think they're sparing me from anything that might be agitating or whatever. I'm a ward missionary again for the 8th time. I'm a missionary. I had something happen to me when I was called to be bishop. President Dale Mark called me in, and Billy was with me. He had to get her permission that she would support me because the job is so demanding. Will you support your husband? Her first response was, who, him? Anyway, I didn't know what it was. He talked to her first about it. There's no use him interviewing me if she says, I can't spare him that much time.
I only have one more question that
Okay.
I'd like to ask. Well, maybe two more questions. What's your favorite pistol caliber and rifle caliber?
Pistol caliber?
Uh-huh.
You mean like this?
You're still carrying. Is that a 380 ACP?
And it's got a new cartridge. You know, another thing I noticed about her, she's so graceful. She's not falling
not a
over
klutz.
everything and slamming into
Let's
this.
see, did she get that
falling
from her
over that.
dad, do you think? Or maybe
She's
Mom?
enjoyable to watch because she's so gracious.
So, should we think about going to get something to eat, Dad?
Yeah,
Now, I looked up, and I think the name of that restaurant is El Indios?
it might be. There's 2 of them within a couple blocks.
Yeah,
of each other.
but I know where to go. And I remember being there, and it's called El Indios, I
It's
think.
really good.
Yeah.
Do you have any popcorn for me?
Well, then don't you mad at me for...
So, Dad,
But,
is that still where you'd like to go, or did something else come to mind?
well, no, that's still
Okay, let's go there then.
okay.
Now, I didn't call to make a reservation or anything, but
I don't know if you need one.
well,
I've been in
yeah,
there a couple of times and they didn't.
I will.
I was surprised there weren't more.
If everybody's ready to go, I'll just give them a call as we're heading out the door to let them know we're coming.
Oh, okay.
So
Well, we're going to follow you, or whoever's driving.
How will they know when they're there?
we'll use our psychic ability.